Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us at this session at RAREsummit. We're going to tell you a little bit of a story about how a rare disease patient organisation came to be working with industry. This is a story that is in progress. It is not a finished story yet, but we want to share a little bit about how it came about and maybe where we're going with it as we go along. So a couple of introductions first. I'm Shirlene Badger. I lead patient advocacy for Lumina across EMEA, so Europe, Middle East and Africa, but with a really special focus on rare disease and our rare disease communities. And with me today, we have Allison.
Hi, thanks, Shirlene. So I'm Allison Watson. I'm CEO and co-founder for Ring20 Research and Support UK. We're a patient support group supporting families affected by ring chromosome 20 syndrome all around the world.
Thanks, Allison. So just to start things off, I think it's possibly the best place to start is at the beginning. And Allison, I'm wondering if you can just share with us a little bit of the beginnings of this story and what the problem was in the first place.
Thank you, Shirlene. So the story begins 2 years ago, almost to the day, when I was invited to speak at RAREsummit21 by the Cambridge Rare Disease Network. They provide a great platform for patient groups like ourselves to be able to have a voice and to explain the challenges and the opportunities that we might come across in our rare diseases. I was asked to speak as part of a patient panel discussing patient group involvement in the drug development process and how partnerships can be formed. I was invited to speak about the challenges we face for our rare disease, Ring20, and how they can be overcome. Representing ring chromosome 20 syndrome, or R20 as we call it for short, it's an ultra-rare epilepsy. And I explained in my presentation that we currently have no recommended treatments, no clinical practice guidelines, no patient registry to know how many or where the patients exist. There is incredibly limited research, and patients have never been invited to a clinical trial. So we at Ring20 are at the very start of the drug discovery process, with the fundamental building blocks to basic research effectively missing. Ring20's answer to these challenges has been through partnering, participating in the Epicare ERN, the European Reference Network, in my position as co-lead for the patient advocacy group, which has enabled me to elevate awareness of R20 syndrome severalfold, and has started to create opportunities I hadn't foreseen. However, it was in fact my explanation of R20 syndrome and the diagnostic challenges that we face that proved serendipitous. Take a look.
Syndrome. What is R20? Well, it's a very difficult to treat epilepsy. It doesn't respond to treatment. It's associated with learning and behaviour difficulties. Fact. Ring chromosomes occur in about 1 in 50,000 births. So why only are there 150 cases of ring chromosome 20 syndrome cited in medical literature worldwide? Leads us to suggest that ring chromosome 20 syndrome is underdiagnosed or misdiagnosed. And why are there the challenges here? Well, the normal epilepsy gene panel testing consists of exomes or whole genome sequencing, chromosomal microarray. None of those new genetic testing techniques will pick up ring chromosome 20 syndrome, particularly in the mosaic form. Particularly pertinent, we're here today at the Wellcome Genome Campus, where the hub of the whole genome sequencing, and you have a rare disease that you can't diagnose yet. So anybody with any great ideas to moving forward from that, I'd love to talk to you today.
So on that very day, two things were happening. You've just seen Allison present at RAREsummit. in Cambridge. On that day, I was with a family filming for a completely different project, and we were filming stories of diagnosis. We were filming about the impact of receiving a diagnosis of a rare condition on children and their families. And I spent the day with a family in the UK who had received a Ring 20 diagnosis for their daughter. As I spent the day with them, I realized that their diagnosis had not come through next generation sequencing. It had not come through exome or genomic sequencing of any kind. It was a karyotype test that had given them their results. And they had been quite lucky in terms of their access to that diagnosis and being able to get it relatively quickly. But of course, during the day, as filming unfolded, I learned quite a lot about Ring 20, about its impact, about the issues that confronted them, about the future fears for Lily, and what was going to develop. I got home that night and received some emails from some colleagues, because in the audience that day listening to Allison were two of my colleagues, and they had been really, really struck by this challenge, I guess, that Allison had thrown out. And the diagnostic challenges that she explained in her talk. One of them had gone up and spoken to her after the session, and emails had been exchanged and continued to be exchanged over the next few weeks. And I think there was that serendipitous moment when I received the email from my colleague, and I was like, I know Ring 20, I've just spent the day with the Ring 20 family. That elevated it, I think, for all of us in terms of both the reality of the condition, but also the reality of the challenges that were being faced. So after hearing Allison and after that day, we kept this burning. We kept talking about this. We kept having discussions internally at Lumina about this problem. Another serendipitous moment happened where I was invited to speak internally to our entire bioinformatics team about patient advocacy. And we talked about that filming moment. And they also talked about a number of challenges that they were confronting and how they wanted to move things forward. And once again, I think Ring 20 emerged as a possible exemplar of the joint problems that we were facing and how we could potentially, or what could we do to move this, to move the dial here. So we talked about the science behind Ring 20. We looked at the genomics, we looked at the papers that had been written, we did a lot of research, and we kept in communication with Allison. And then we invited Allison to Illumina, to Granta Park, to our Lumina Centre, for a meeting that occurred on February the 17th, 2020, before lockdown and before all the constraints that came upon us then. In that meeting room, there were just 4 of us in person and a couple of people online from America. And we really just laid things out on the table. There was no solution at that point in time. There were just questions and thinking through pathways. What could we do here? And how could things move forward? But on that day, we made a very definite decision that we were going to work together, that we were going to do something, that we were going to try and find a solution to this diagnostic problem that Ring 20 faced. These things do take time, and again, after many, many meetings, after many discussions, we decided that we wanted to have 2 clear outputs of what we were going to do together. There were 2 clear aims. So the first, obviously, was the solution to the diagnostic problem, but the second was, how do we do this to leave really good footprints? So how do we do something that is co-created to meet a problem that the families are confronting, or the problems that the Ring 20 community as a whole are facing? And how do we do this so that we build knowledge, that we build expertise, that we co-create and solve problems together? And so this all culminated in an announcement at the AGM in 2020 in December.
We We want to take you on a journey, a pathway, if you like, that we hope will give you a bright future for all those living with Ring 20 syndrome all around the world.
We would expect to see the numbers of diagnoses increasing in rare diseases like ring chromosome 20. But as you can see on this slide, apart from 2019, there's been a steady decline.
What is worse, I think, is that progress not only sees a reduction in diagnosis, we will certainly be able to, I hope, offer diagnoses. That needs your help. We would like to embark upon applying this test in a research program to be able to see why we can't see ring 20 and whether we can see ring 20. If we know what we're looking for, we really should be able to find it.
So following the announcement at the AGM, we approached our patient community and asked if anyone wanted to help us with the phase 1 and producing the educational materials. After all, information on a rare disease must make sense to the patients as well as clinicians and researchers, right? So several parents and an R20 patient came forwards, and together they formed our Ring 20 Champions group, working tirelessly with Shirlene and I every week to help develop new materials to explain what we do know and what we don't yet know about R20 syndrome and how genomics might help. We launched a new website in April this year, and we named our project UNRAVEL, Making Genomic Understanding of Ring Chromosome 20 Syndrome Possible.
Join us and play your part in unraveling Ring 20.
Why unravel?
Why is it important for those affected with a Ring 20?
I've read about mosaic and non-mosaic Ring 20. What does that mean?
I thought we were doing the natural history study. Is this a different activity?
I've already got my diagnosis, so what's this going to do for me?
So what can be achieved from genomics and what can't?
What is a genome?
Can genomics help us find effective therapies?
What should we be asking Lumina or other experts?
What do we know about Ring 20 chromosome syndrome and what don't we know?
Is this only for people in the UK? How can we participate and do we need to travel for this?
How can I help to make connections in Italy or elsewhere?
What times are involved and when can we expect to see results?
I don't really understand what it's all about, but I'm excited to find out more.
This is for all of us, patients, doctors, families.
Are you asking the same questions? Want to know more? This represents a new venture for Ring 20 and a real first. Follow us as we try to unravel R20 syndrome on our journey of discovery together.
We're at a really exciting time now because we're about to launch a range of brand new assets to our patient community. And with all of these great materials, we'll have a willing and educated group of patients ready to embark on phase 2, where we'll look to collect the samples and Illumina can get going on that really important R&D work. Except for one snag. The impact of the pandemic is preventing us progressing sample collection through the NHS. We're exploring various options, but we don't yet have a solution. What we need is a willing clinician to help us as a PI to deliver a small feasibility study to submit ethics for approval, make the sample collection 5 to 10 samples max, and deliver the results back to the patient families. Could you help us continue on our journey?